It was a still, clear night on Scotland Sound, and 3 trawlers were seen fishing the bay. They occasionally passed each other as they dragged their nets along the deep trench below. The captains kept a close watch on the waters ahead while the deckhands worked hard manning the gear. Unbeknownst to the crews on the surface, a series of events had begun to unfold beneath them, and for one of these boats, a simple turn of the wheel could spell disaster. This is the story of the Antares. The HMS Trenchant is a nuclear-powered Trafalgar-class submarine, measuring 82 meters in length and crewed by 120 personnel. It was a gray, overcast day when 6 trainees and their commanding officer prepared to board. These men were candidates of the Royal Navy's infamous Parachute course, a 24-week program designed to assess their ability to command a submarine. Known for its grueling demands, it's considered one of the toughest command courses in the world. The commanding officer of the course had over 18 years of experience on such vessels. At 41 years old, it marked 10 years since he completed his own Parachute course in 1980. Once aboard, the Trenchant proceeded to a designated exercise zone between Scotland and the Faroe Islands. There, she spent the next 4 days running a myriad of simulations and navigation drills, testing the trainees to their maximum. Meanwhile, in the small fishing village of Carradale, the crew of the trawler Antares prepared for a 5-day trip. They packed the vessel with supplies before casting off into the night. Their destination lay northeast of the island of Arran to the deep trench of Debuda Sound, a well-known fishing ground they had visited many times before. The Antares, a wooden trawler built in 1965, was 57 feet long with a crew of 4 on board. The skipper, 36 years old, had years of fishing under his belt. He purchased the Antares 3 years prior and had fished continuously during this time. Tonight was just another routine trip for him and his 3 crew. 2 other trawlers, the Heroine from Troon and Hercules from Ayr, were also fishing in the area. Over the following days, the vessels came in and out of visual and radio contact as they passed in close proximity. The Antares moved to other grounds on occasion but returned to do most of her fishing in the trench. On the evening of November 21st, conditions were excellent. Light winds, 8-mile visibility, and an air temperature of 11 degrees Celsius. The Antares briefly called to the port of Lars to offload her catch before swiftly departing once again. At 5:30 p.m., she arrived back at the southern end of Butt Sound with the crew shooting their fishing lines and beginning to tow in a northwesterly direction. Ahead of them, in the dark, the crew saw the Heroine, also traveling to the northwest. The captain of the Antares picked up the VHF radio and informed the Heroine's captain that he planned to rest below deck for a short time while another crew member took control of the vessel. The 2 men spoke a little longer before signing off. By this time, the Trenchant had completed the first phase of her exercise in the North Sea and had headed back towards the south. The course had begun to take its toll, and the 6-man team was now reduced to 4. The vessel made her way to the Clyde training area, now accompanied by the surface ship Charybdis. From here, her movements were recorded in detail within the ship's log. At 11:30 p.m., the Trenchant's crew was tasked with a dummy mine-laying exercise in the nearby Hunter Channel. The Charybdis was to act as an opposing force while the Trenchant made a series of evasive maneuvers to avoid detection, a technically demanding exercise in a narrow body of water. Upon completion, both vessels exited the channel to practice dummy attack scenarios in open water. At 1:31 a.m., the Trenchant moved to periscope depth to spot the Charybdis during a mock torpedo run. The duty captain carefully scanned the entire area and reported only seeing the naval vessel and no other ships. The exercise continued for a further 30 minutes until at 2 a.m. it was deemed complete. The Trenchant then resubmerged to 60 meters and set a northwesterly course towards the end of Arran at a steady speed of 6 knots. At this point, The course leader and ship's captain retired to the wardroom to discuss the candidate's performance while the duty captain handed over command to a trainee. The heroine, now towing northwest, passed the Antares, which was headed in a southeasterly direction. Approximately 10 minutes later, the heroine's watchkeeper glanced back and noticed the Antares turning to starboard, coming back to a northwesterly tow. All appeared normal, but what was to come remained unknown. At 2 a.m., the crews of the Heroine and Hercules communicated via VHF, noting that the Antares was no longer visible by eye or on radar. They assumed she had moved to another area, so no alarm was raised, and both vessels continued fishing. Below the surface, the Trenchant's duty captain made a course alteration to 315 degrees true north. Instantly, war contacts appeared on the sonar. These were designated as M1, 3, 5, and 45. M1 was identified as the Charybdis, now departing the area. Contact 5 was classified as a fishing vessel. Its signal grew louder, and its course shifted rapidly. The passive sonar didn't provide an exact range, but at 35 dB, it was alarmingly close. The trainee captain ordered a sharp turn to port. As the submarine's bow swung through the water, the sonar operator reported contact 5 closing the distance rapidly and well within the required 2,000-yard exclusion zone. The duty captain eased the rudder, hoping to reduce the rate of approach, but it was too late. At 2:19 a.m., the submarine shuddered as a series of loud bangs echoed through the control room. The sonar controller immediately reported a troll snag. The submarine's engines were stopped as troll wires scraped along the metal hull of the Trenchant. The sonar operators heard strange disturbances through their headsets, including the sound of a propeller spinning up. The course leader rushed back to the control room and retook command of the Trenchant. For the 4 men aboard the Antares, the moments that followed were filled with terror and confusion. All seemed normal until, without warning, their troll wires were suddenly wrenched taut. The vessel listed sharply, throwing the crew off balance as the trawler was pulled backward through the water. The violent force of the submarine dragging the gear caused the Antares to roll onto its starboard side. Within seconds, water flooded into the open wheelhouse as the vessel began to submerge into the cold, dark sea. The skipper and a crew member fought to escape. With no time to send out a mayday, the last-ditch effort was made to power up the engines and break free of the snag. They tried to pry open the windows of the wheelhouse as the chaos of rushing water consumed the boat, but it was too late. The Antares disappeared below the surface with all 4 crews still on board. A short while later, the Trenchant raised to periscope depth. The captain carefully scanned the waters and saw 2 trawlers fishing as normal. All seemed calm and as it should be. He radioed the Charybdis, whose captain confirmed no alarms had been raised. Still concerned, the captain ordered a full inspection. The crew quickly found lengths of steel wire and chain tangled around the submarine's tower, but with no signs of distress on the surface, the incident was not fully realized. The Trenchant's captain took some time to think. All indications showed that no vessels in the area were in trouble. At 3:15 a.m., the captain radioed a report to the operations room at Fast Lane. The radio operators had not heard any distress calls either, so the decision was made to continue with the exercise. 6 hours later, word of a potential incident grew. By 9 a.m., the alarm was officially raised as reports of surface debris were being spotted by ships in the area. A helicopter crew was dispatched and quickly found the telltale signs of an accident. Fish boxes and oil could be seen from the air. At this point, the full realization of what had happened began to take hold, and a coordinated search and rescue effort took place. After a day of searching, the RMAS Triader identified a wreck on the seafloor. It was sitting at 150 meters deep, facing in a northeasterly direction, and lying on her starboard side. Given the depth, a team of saturation divers was sent to investigate, and it was soon confirmed that the wreck was the Antares. Over the following weeks, the wreck was slowly resurfaced. Once dry, the vessel was found to be largely undamaged, though the electrical equipment had succumbed to saltwater. The hull and main structure of the boat were largely intact. While the ship's investigation continued, a wider search was underway to find the fourth and final crew member. Despite having an accurate location of where the incident took place, the retrieval of the body was unfortunately unsuccessful for several months. The collision was attributed to failings in the Trenchant's watchkeeping and situational awareness. The command team was unaware that the single sonar contact was, in fact, two vessels. The Royal Navy's standing orders at the time required submarines to remain clear of fishing vessels by a minimum separation distance of 2,000 yards. Additionally, the standing orders set out by the captain of the Trenchant specified that he was to be called if the submarine found itself within 4,000 yards of a surface contact. As a result of this incident, a number of changes were made to the Royal Navy's directives. These included a mandatory 3,000-yard separation distance between submarines and fishing vessels, as well as a requirement for submarines to surface when not on duty, and for surface vessels to be present during training exercises. For the crew and family of the Antares, this was unfortunately all too late. Her wreck would spend the next 18 years on display at the Scottish Maritime Museum in Irvine until finally being dismantled in 2008. Today, the pier at Cardale is still busy with boats. Crews prepare their nets and trawlers hang from their ropes. But as you look east towards the island of Arran, a plaque clings to the seawall, a final tribute to the Antares and her 4 crew members.